Day 1st August 2022, Saquarema City, Rio de Janeiro, Federative Unit, Brazil. We will have a conversation, quite simple, quite clear today, kick in the month, kick in the week. We had this situation, the security forum with two drivers, driver alpha and driver beta. Considering the regression of distortion, we will have the alpha as driver with macroeconomic failure, I would say, as A, and microeconomic as A, small letter, but in both cases it's not present in the alpha. In the same way on beta, and the association of both, it will imply that by failure I can have a permutative argument between alpha and beta. It can go by fake records. And the very first authority or department that in general get in touch with crimes and criminal results is the police department. If you can trust in your police department and the criminal records, it's a big problem. The new tracer allow you to do this research, observing values as binary value codified, used as the qualify and quantifying the guiltiness. And the guiltiness is a consequence of something illegal that has a result in many cases, but sometimes even without the result, you had the crimes committed. You observe that the association between the public departments with the cooperative area and the transnational organized crime allowed the research as 0 up to 33 trillion, projecting the association with organized crime, projecting the association with transnational organized crime on public budget. We could observe in the day before that since 1988 up to 2022, we could observe that the distribution is top-down and based on corruption and blind eye association from the top as a top-down scam, considering one federative unit Brazil as driver alpha and 5,000 seats and 27 federative units, the diverting money totally accounted at the public treasury Brazil has phases, I would say, on each one of 27 states and 5,000 counties or cities. Indeed, this is a wealth cycle based on diverted money from public treasury as a Ponzi scam. We could observe that this kind of scam as association goes in a micro perception, even this tiny small city as the fintech crimes. And if I have three providers of communication, in each one of them doing the Kubernetes or boxing, have the cubering of information. In general, this is illegal. This is an asset of IBM. If you use this asset for criminal purpose, maybe you violated one asset of the IBM. The IBM will research this and request information and maybe will offer you a procedure. The procedure that we will have, I'm not an IBM member, as you can observe, I'm doing things by myself, I'm independent, I'm an academic research, living in an area very troubled. And by those troubles that unfortunately were forced to leave, I have no interest in this area at all. We will check that if I have an exclusive service, and this exclusive service is associated at my machine, like my mobile has an account as VPN, and only my mobile has this as an exclusive service. If you clone my mobile and I do my access as VPN, and you'd like to have the continuity of cloned machines to create the simulation of my use, which violates my personality, indeed, we will observe that the VPN or the exclusive service that is associated with my instruments forms a circuit. My use is like this. Then you consider that it will clone my use, but I had a continuity as you service, but to be me, you must clone this. You violated the asset as induced in the same way. as observed on IBM. You will be charged by them in the way they do. Then we will observe that when I have this, indeed I will observe that this goes in a geographic area. And if this geographic area is one geopolitical area, we will observe that we had for sure organized crime based on the geopolitical distribution of power, going by failure and silence 7423, 1 of the Brazilian Constitution, plus 13 as criminal law, observing the 313A, which implies that the police department and the users of those records indeed are not reliable, because they got in touch with all this and they are not present in this. Then we will check that the area indeed will have NOTs as exclusive services or something like this. And when I do this, for instance, getting the Spotify not authorized user associated or logged in a cluster of machines cloned that can clone a large number of persons. And they made the router, tracking only one. I will observe that indeed this as a model, we put them all as a unique thing here. This is a principle of counting. And we did a regression until the source, which is the huge empowerment doing the redistribution of criminal empowerment for criminal use as nepotism, corruption, domain of circumstance. Klaus Roxanne, Germany. Now, we will observe that this indeed was made by the IoT. Take a look on our blog, Risk Report 2022, tracyalbus.blogspot.com. It's out there. We have questions to be made. Indeed, they are kind of confirming all things we have. The last thing that we will observe, it's about the supply chain. The supply chain, if you had a NATO procedure, considering all effort and intellectual asset offered even as self-defense and the self-defense of this creditor committee as the legitimacy of credit, and creditor which is 33 trillion plus 4 trillion as financial punishment, 1 trillion multiplied per 4, because your behavior is systematic according with the Chicago School. There are no aleatory behavior in a systematic way of do things, like you do criminal offender. In the same way, you have one case of harassment, 1 billion multiplied per 3 trillion, and this is 3 trillion as financial punishment, considering the case, 1 billion. And you have a new one as economic crimes, 1 billion. You are, in a deep shit. Then, and we have a concurrent interest as charging you from my legal right as compensation. The supply chain goes like this. I observe that I have a supermarket here. This supermarket here is inside the Brazil geographic space. Inside the Brazil geographic space, I have the distribution of items that goes by a supply chain, putting things at this market that must offer things very accord with the law, totally square. But since you suffer the consequence and considering the association as coalition, scam, public and corporate as observed at the board, you consider that it will be a great idea as your top level as chief of department, minister or something like this, and a board member, and they are all under the dependency and domain of a drug dealer or someone that put drugs, because they consider that this is happiness and freedom, despite it says slavery. Then we will check that they decided to cut the supply chain and have the interaction with something like this that goes like this, putting circles at the supply chain. And so let's suppose that my people will buy things at this market and will suffer a heart attack or something like this. And then you will consider that you will claim and ask your petition against the market, that you will point the company that put this thing at the consumer market, globally speaking. And then you request a compensation in the judicial system, corrupted and rotten, like for instance, a junkie specific area. But this will not be like this by this model. As you can observe, we have one specific pattern as behavior organized to take advantage of failures that goes inside regular space. The internal dot product with orientation -1 set in the Banach space that goes inside the regular area. By this is observed as criminal purpose in the very first moment to take the legitimacy of this credit. Consider that you can avoid this anymore. You consider that you can, for instance, have the death even is a murder, but supposing that is a death even by natural cause of the one specific creditor, for instance, a consumer, to request the compensation and obtain advantage and put things like a confusion. You kind of will do the payment and then we, for instance, as an American conjuncture, they claim the payment. And then you will request the payment back by the compensation, consider the death event to put things 0-0. But it won't be like this, my friend. See? And then we will observe the real fact. That is, this is one leak of, a beverage. When I open this, you can observe, I will check that this bottle has no, that situation for security. When you open the bottle, this other one has. Can you understand? You are not having this from the police department. That in general do those sellers, as I told you before, we must consider, observe if those items seized are, back into the street. What do you think? Corruption Department Brazil has integrated failure, which is a criminal conjuncture operated by criminal purpose all the time? Please take a look at the blog Risk Report July 2022 and the effort before. It's some blog you can have from my profile, you can have from social media, and then take a look at this month as current effort. Risk Report 2022 traceaugust.blogspot.com. Now I'm going to ask you, American judicial power is international power doing the application of the Brazilian law by the lack of capacity to understand the law, the consequence, the kind of risk that unfortunately we at the international area are facing by the lack of will, integrity, and capacity of our, unfortunately, players and departments and offices as corporative offices with chairs, especially on global companies that now is forming a group, named Dismiss Group. The Dismiss Group was the offenders at the debtor system and viewed as criminal purpose, the existence by the density as behavior from from positive 1, corrupted with criminal intent until observe them all as criminals. Have a good night.